Hello guys, good morning, good afternoon, good evening. I'm just Stinky again here. I just got done recording my tournament videos. For those of you who haven't seen them yet, go ahead and watch them. I don't know why I'm getting connection errors right now. Go ahead and watch them. The tournament turned out very well. I will be doing another one of those. It's going to kind of be an ongoing series. Okay. Oh, well, shit. That didn't go well at all. Well, bastard. I wasn't expecting that. I guess I kind of should have been expecting that. Anyway, I just got done recording my tournament. It turned out to be a very good series. That's going to be ongoing. I'm going to always have a tournament going. But I guess I want to finish the card breakdowns here. So the last one on the docket is really just the ninjas. I guess I'll touch on the. So this is going to be the ninja breakdown video, guys. It came a little bit earlier than what I was thinking. I kind of flew through these. So let me know. Let me know what you guys think about them. If you want me to redo any of them, if you have questions about anything specific, why I kind of thought what I do about the cards. I'll just kind of go through them real quick. Notice I do have all the ninja cards. I think. Pretty sure. Yeah, I got harmonic balance. I believe ninjas have less cards than all the other factions do, but they do have a lot of really bad cards. So, again, yeah, that's it. That's it for the ninjas. I feel like they are lacking in the cards. Let's touch on some of the foils here. Again, the Warlock Academy and the AOD foils. I don't have. Gosh darn it! I need to quit saying The Warlock Academy and the AOD foils I don't have. I do believe I have most of the other ones. I don't have Panda, which makes me sad. I had one of these and then I sharded it for full value when they changed it and gave us that opportunity. So I took the shards and did other stuff with it. So I don't have this card anymore, and I kind of wish I do because I really like Panda, but we'll touch on him later. Kuru definitely have. Dojo. I've had multiple foil dojos. Gosh damn it. Back before they changed here. Again, I think Panda might be the only non-AOD. Oh, this I don't have for whatever reason. But I don't play that card. So there's the foils. Just kind of show them off. Again, a Warlock Academy one, but there we go. Alright, so let's start the breakdowns. Let's start with replacement technique. This card's seen a couple different iterations since it's been around. Really basic what this does. It essentially bounces a unit, and then the next unit play takes its place. So it's a movement modifier, can be a double strike enabler. Replacement technique is really solid. I would definitely consider playing this in Ninja if tag team didn't exist. I think tag team is just infinitely better than replacement technique. But sometimes I end up running one of both because the zero cost of replacement technique really helps. Sometimes you want to play the tag team with the unit that you really want to play, and you don't need the extra to attack, but you're 1 gold short. So replacement technique helps to alleviate that. I really like this card. Play it. It can be useful in some situations, but ninjas, as far as a faction as a whole, are a very technical faction. Generally speaking, not great on their own. They need to support another faction. I would consider ninja to be a support faction. So the cards that you play are really going to do better stuff to help other factions' cards, because ninjas are just too weak on their own. They were too strong for so long that now I feel like they're just a little bit lacking in just about everything that they do. So a lot of the cards, you need to really think of them as synergizing with some other factions. Making a mono ninja deck is very difficult to make work. Not impossible, but very difficult. So replacement technique is good. Let's look at a bad card. This is Vanish. Compare it to replacement technique. Vanish lets you bounce a unit. That's it. This lets you bounce a unit and the next unit takes its place. You don't have to cast another unit. So you can do the exact same thing that Vanish does with Replacement Technique, but Replacement Technique has that extra tech where you can play a unit in your opponent's field. If you have access to Replacement Technique, never play Vanish. There are better cards that cost, a little bit more gold, or even the same gold that do other stuff. Vanish is just outclassed by so many things in ninjas that it's unfair. So don't play Vanish. You'll be better off playing a multitude of anything else. Let's talk Adrenaline Rush. This gives +4 movement, but -1 movement on every turn after that. You can use that to slow down your opponent's units, although it's used significantly less often that way, and significantly more often by giving your unit an insane 4 movement, additional movement, and then doing something crazy like a surprise Darkfire, or surprise you're dead. Adrenaline Rush. Very good, highest movement buff you can get. I honestly think that the +4 movement's probably too much. You can get away with other spells that don't have the downside, or you can get away with something like Lunge, which we'll touch on in a couple of cards here. So I don't think that +4 movement's really all that necessary, but I mean, if you really, really, really want to keep your guys back and get them in there for a surprise, you're dead, then Adrenaline Rush will get the job done. Again, support card, not so great on its own. You need to combo this with some other stuff, but if played properly, it can be really nasty. Evasive Maneuvers, I really like this card. However, you need to be careful what you play it on. Anything that you target with Evasive Maneuvers is going to be instantly your opponent's priority #1 target. The idea is to keep your units out of range. This allows you to move, attack, and move. So you can go in, hit the base, run away, go in, hit a unit, run away. This keeps your unit alive. That's kind of why he's doing the Matrix old bullet time here. It keeps your units alive a lot longer, but they become targets for hard removal. That's why all the stealth exists, that kind of stuff. So really, Evasive Maneuvers can be good, but again, you have to be careful how you play it. Sometimes it can just be a +1 movement and that's it. So again, can be super useful. You just need to use it the right way, and that's going to be the common theme with ninjas here. Can be super useful, just have to play it the right way. Let's touch on Lunge. I was actually kind of hoping I got one of these in the draft that I just finished. Lunge is super useful. It gives a unit +2 movement and +2 attack. As you can imagine, it makes a swordsman insane, be able to reach a spot from a lot farther away than you would think, and it gives them the attack boost to be able to kill buildings and stuff. Lunge is really good. This is your basic movement enhancer for ninjas. Compare this to Adrenaline Rush. It sacrifices the 2 movement for the 2 attack. I think Lunge is better overall, but they both have their uses. Sometimes that extra 2 movement will get you there. Sometimes that extra 2 attack will get you there. So it's really just based on what you're trying to do. Fantastic if used the right way. Alright, Meditation. This is a card that I don't really like all that much. The buff that it gives compared to something like the Viking bucks like Battle Harden and that other one, Blessing of the Treants. Those are situational, but this is also situational. Gives a unit 2/2, but it can't attack this turn. If you're marching a unit into enemy territory, Meditation can be good to give them a little pick-me-up. In tournament, it's not the worst thing that you could draft, but there's definitely better alternatives. In Constructed, this card gets outclassed by just about any other buff in the game. Plus, having your unit not be able to attack is kind of a real bummer. Momentum. This card's gone through several iterations as well. Now it's practically useless. Although it does kind of fit in with the theme of the Blessing of the Treants and the Battle Hardened. There's momentum as well. So a unit with 4 more movement, +2/+2. If you buff a unit's movement with something like Lunge and it gets over 4, you can still hit it with momentum, and the momentum would stick after the extra movement falls away. Momentum had to be killed. This is the dead version of momentum. Momentum was too strong, way, way, way too strong. Now it's not very strong, and that is welcome for me. Don't play momentum, and everyone's happy. No more momentum, thank you. Stance of the Fierce Tiger. We're going to cover a few stances here in the next few cards. I'll kind of cover them all at once, just to save a little bit of time as well as my breath, because I'm going to be saying the same thing about all of these. Don't play them. They're not great anymore. They used to draw cards and have different combinations of adding health and movement and attack, and all that other stuff. I mean, this gives attack minus movement. This gives health minus attack. This gives movement minus attack. I don't know why there's no minus health one, but there should be. I think that's weird, but whatever. So these all do different things. They all used to draw a card. So thematically, anyway, you used to be able to, play a stance, do something, play another stance. It's like thematically it kind of fit in and it replaced itself and all that other good stuff. But people were abusing the early draw power of the stances, and they kind of had to get killed too. I guess they didn't have to get killed now that momentum is dead, but ninjas lost a lot of their utility when these lost their draw. So don't play any of these cards anymore. They don't do what they were originally intended to do. Think about it. It's a stance change. Draws a card, change the stats. Stance change. Draw a card, change your stats. Thematically, they're pretty unique. And they really fit the ninja mechanic well, but since they lost the draw card, they're just no longer useful. So ninjas no longer have that cool tech, and that's kind of a shame. I wish they'd give these their drawback. Now that momentum is dead. All right, here's swiftness. This is another early draw spell. Give a unit +1 movement, draw a card. It does exactly what it says on the tin. This is a starter card, but this card's actually, it's okay. It's not as good as some of the other, as really any of the other early game draw spells that you'll see in the other factions. It's not as good as Dark Bolt. It's not as good as Chaotic Storm. It's not as good as Cripple. It's not as good as the plethora of Crusader things. Vikings don't really have one. I guess the one that gives attack and health, Cloak of the Protector or whatever. Swiftness isn't as good as any of those. The +1 movement isn't really that great, and then it does draw a card. So even the other cantrips and the other factions, they do stuff. Swiftness doesn't. Since ninjas are already focused on giving stuff movement, you don't need to add movement on top of movement on top of movement on top of movement anymore. So this card just doesn't really do enough, even at the 1-drop cantrip spot, where usually you're gonna have other stuff to play. So I don't really like it, but I guess if you really need to cycle through your deck quickly and you're not playing Crusaders with Pirates, you think about including swiftness. Vanishing Powder, another card that got killed. Vanishing Powder used to cost 3. It would bounce anything and it would draw a card. So you could bounce your units, your opponent's units, your buildings, your opponent's buildings, and you'd be able to draw a card with it. They killed it, so now you can't draw a card with it, but they knocked it down to 1. This can be useful by clearing out the body blocker in front of your opponent's base and getting in there and finishing him off. That's about it for Vanishing Powder. Some people still play it, but since it no longer draws a card, it's totally useless. You don't want to just return the threat to your opponent's hand and then have them just play it again on the next turn, and then, well, you wasted a card. Then your opponent has the tempo on you. They have the card advantage. They have everything, and you got nothing in exchange for bouncing their unit. Usually not a good idea. Now that this no longer draws a card, definitely not a good idea. It's just kind of a shame that they killed it. But now it's dead. Alpha Strike, they also killed this card. Again, you're going to hear that a lot throughout this breakdown about all the cards that they killed in ninjas. Alpha Strike, it pretty much does everything that it used to do. It used to cost 3, I think, but now it only costs 2, which makes it a little bit more useful. This card's not totally worthless. It deals 4 damage, and you can regain it once. You used to be able to regain this card as many times as you want. If it slayed a unit, you got it back. Slayed a unit, got it back. Slayed a unit, got it back. You could use this thing 10 times in the same game if you wanted to. It allowed, since the ninjas, generally speaking, have less draw power than a lot of the other factions. This is what kind of caught up the ground, and since the ninjas units are weaker than a lot of the factions as well, as far from an attack power standpoint, this really kind of regained a lot of the initiative and stuff. It brought a lot of value to your units, but now that Alpha Strike is just essentially, it's limited in its uses, it doesn't see it a lot of play anymore. I think it's definitely still playable in draft for sure, as I showed that in my videos. And it's definitely useful and constructed, but there's a card that does this but better that we're going to cover a little bit later. But if you don't have Eternity Strike, Alpha Strike's not a bad alternative. Play this card in Ninjas, and you really won't be disappointed with it, usually, sometimes. Keep in mind that the 4 damage is also increased by Acolyte and Warlocks. Ambush, give all units with Stealth 2/2. If you're playing a Stealth deck, Ambush is kind of your go-to, but Stealth decks are kind of lame. It's too hard to keep Stealth on units. Stealth just goes away and never comes back in most circumstances. And the 2/2, not that great. There's a Viking card, Battle Training, that does the same thing, but for all your units, whether they're Stealth or not. And this affects enemy units too. So if your enemy has a Stealth unit, they're getting buffed too. Yeah. That's all I really have to say about Ambush. Escape. This card's unique. It returns a friendly unit and all nearby units to their owner's hands. So it returns your units and your opponent's units. So if you bring in something like Kuru into the enemy base, attack something in the play Escape and bounce all your opponent's units, that can actually be kind of clever. I've seen Escape used in some very unique ways. It needs to be used correctly in order to get the good value out of it. Otherwise, you're just playing Vanish. So you really need to bounce some opponent's units, and you need to make it worth bouncing your opponent's units, or, I don't know, maybe bounce your units. Bouncing Terius a bunch of times with Escape might not necessarily be bad either, as long as you can do it in the right way. So Escape has its uses. You need to be careful how you play this card, but it's not the worst thing in the world. Flash Grenades, generally speaking, better than Escape, because it bounces a friendly unit and deals 2 damage to nearby enemies. So you get your guy back, and then it deals 2 damage to everything around it, including the castle. And buildings, so you can kind of get in there for a little bit of extra damage. It can be enough damage to finish off enemy units. Flash Grenade used to be played all the time when ninjas were a lot more popular. Now ninjas are a lot less popular, and so is Flash Grenade. There are better things out there, I think, than Flash Grenade at this point, but doesn't make Flash Grenade bad. You, again, just need to be careful how you play this card. But it's not terrible. It's definitely seen a lot of play in the past. It's been the same for forever. So you'll get some value out of Flash Grenade. It's not a bad card to play. Harmonic Balance. This is probably one of my favorite ninja cards. I love this card. So if you remember when I was talking about Demonic Rage and how I didn't think it was that great, well, conversely, let's talk Harmonic Blast, and I think it's amazing. You might be thinking that the downside of all your opponent's units getting +3 health is terrible. And your units are only getting +3 attack. However, there's a couple of key differences you need to note with. Did I say Demonic Rage when I really meant Army of the Damned? I meant Army of the Damned. Let's show Army of the Damned real quick. Right here. What are the major differences between that card and this card? Army of the Damned is temporary attack boosting, where Harmonic Balance is permanent attack boosting. Also note that your opponents gain +3 health with this card as well, and with Army of the Damned, all your guys just take 1 damage, so they die a lot faster. So not only are your guys not getting any weaker, they're getting significantly more attack power at the cost of your opponent's guys getting more health. But the boost is the same. So if your unit would have one-shotted the opponent's unit and you play Harmonic Balance, your unit would still one-shot the opponent's unit. You just have the added benefit of all your guys getting buffed up, where if you're playing things like Swordsman and Warrior and Guardian, stuff with Pierce, where you can hit additional targets, they just do that much more damage. If your opponents don't have any units to play, you're just getting free buffs. This is a fantastic burst card, way better than Army of the Damned, and it's permanent, so you can play this, a turn or two before you're actually going to combo off. Save a little bit of gold, now save some time, maybe 1 or 2 turns on the clock. You'll be able to finish off your opponent faster. This card's great. I think this should be played a lot more than it actually is, but it doesn't really see any play right now because people are really hyped up on the Warlock, Warlock Crusader builds, and people are kind of pushing ninjas to the wayside here, and I actually think that Harmonic Balance should be played a lot more than it is today. I think eventually people are going to come to realize how strong this card is. Kunai, a card that was changed, but not necessarily killed because it was already dead. This card used to cost 1 and deal 1 damage and regenerate infinitely. Now it costs 2, deals 2 damage and regenerates once. Still not so great. Still not as good as Alpha Strike. Still incredibly weak on the damage. Still incredibly weak on the effect. Still not incredible as a card in general. Don't play Kunai. In draft, it can be decent. In constructed, the 2 damage is totally negligible. Let's talk about a bad card. It's Kuru's Cloak of Vanishing. We're going to cover a card that I just think is a strict upgrade to this card. And this card was increased from rare to legendary with no warning. The name changed. I don't even remember what it was originally called. The art's the same, but this card completely got increased to legendary for whatever reason, and the draw card effect was added, so I guess that's why it was increased. But this card's not great. You don't have control over when this effect triggers, and when it does trigger, your unit doesn't retaliate. So if you have a unit with Kuru's Cloak of Vanishing and your opponent attacks it and kills it, your unit will not retaliate during that combat phase. So your opponent's getting a free attack. Your unit's not retaliating, but it's bouncing and you're drawing a card. So you're losing your board presence for free, for nothing, to draw a card. That's it. It just doesn't do enough. If your unit retaliated when this happened, this card would be so much better, but since it doesn't, it's just worthless. Don't play it. If you don't have it, be happy you don't have it. If you do have it, obviously hold on to it since it's legendary for whatever reason. Don't shard it, but I mean, multi-strike, pretty box standard. Gives a unit multi-strike. I like evasive maneuvers better than multi-strike because it gives the movement bonus as well. It gives +1 movement as well as the additional move. But multi-strike can be used in conjunction. They can be really nasty, as was noted with the Warlock Ninja. The Pirate Ninja deck of the past. I don't really want to talk about it very much, but multi-strike was kind of a key component there. It's a unique mechanic. Only one unit has it innate, so it can't attack the same target twice. This card actually used to do something totally different. Multi-strike used to be a totally different ability than it is today. Multi-strike used to have an Eternity Strike effect where it just hit a unit that was connected, but they weren't necessarily parallel like with Pierce. So you could hit things diagonally. It allowed you to get some creative strikes on the castle, that kind of stuff. But I guess they decided that wasn't a fun mechanic for whatever reason, and changed multi-strike. I don't think multi-strike is as useful as it used to be, but it's not a bad card. I mean, definitely consider playing this if you are playing ninjas. Keep in mind, if you have a unit with cleave, you can attack one part. You can attack, like, let's say you're standing in front of the castle. You can attack a unit next to the castle, or that would be next to you, so you'd hit the castle, and then you can also attack the castle with multi-strike. So really effectively getting 2 attacks on the castle, even though only directly attacking it once. Naturalize, this is your building destroyer for ninjas. I actually think this card's pretty good. Deals 5 damage to a building. I don't know why they changed the word to construct. Or 3 damage to a unit. So if your opponent doesn't have buildings, Naturalize isn't just a totally worthless card. It can still deal some damage to a unit. Not a bad card. Definitely consider playing this if you're playing ninja. Ninja training. This card's surprisingly useful in tournament. Surprisingly not useful in constructed. Giving a unit 1 health, 2 movement, and one attack after each attack. Your unit really needs to stay alive and attack lots of stuff in order to get the real value out of this card. Sometimes the 2 movement is enough just to get value out of playing it. But if you're going to do that, stuff like Adrenaline Rush and Lunge are going to be better choices. So you really need to keep your guy alive in order to make this useful. With as frail as the ninjas are, as well as some of the abilities that they do have, you're gonna wish that ninja training was something else most of the time. All right, this is Patient Study. Notice the Simpsons reference, as well as it says "I will not pirate," which is kind of a throwback to the terrible deck that didn't get nerfed for way too long. The Cancer deck, as you may have heard it called. Again, I don't want to touch on that. But I think this card is a strict upgrade to Cooler's Cloak and Vanishing, because number one, you can control when this triggers. Number two, you have all the control in the world of what to bounce. You don't have to worry about the unit getting killed in order to bounce it. You can bounce whatever you want, whenever you want. You draw the card, you get your guy back. There's lots of stuff, and you maintain all of the flexibility. So it essentially, same effect, but you have the control, where with the other card, your opponent has the control. They can, purge it if they want to. They can decide when that card triggers, and it may not be in your best interest, especially since that unit will not retaliate. Where with this, you have all the flexibility, you have all the control, you keep the element of surprise. I really like Patient Study. Play this card if you're playing ninjas. Shadow Katana, box standard, gives a unit 2 attack, 1 movement. Very self-explanatory. It's what it says on the tin. So this card is a lot more useful than some of the other buffing spells like Battle Gear, because that 1 movement will allow your units to reach a little bit farther if you're playing, Pierce units. And that's where what you want to focus on when you're playing ninjas. You want to focus on Pierce units, Cleave units, Multi-Strike units, units that will attack more than 1 target at a time, because generally speaking, you're going to have inferior attack. You're going to need to get the value out of the attacks that you do get. So Shadow Katana is pretty good at that. You'll notice that the more and more cards that you get, the more and more options that you have, the less and less Shadow Katana becomes useful. So this card's pretty good early in your game. When you're first starting out, Shadow Katana is definitely useful. But like I said, the more your collection grows and the higher you get in rank, the less you're going to see Shadow Katana, just because it's outclassed by some other things. Smokescreen gives all units stealth. You might be thinking that can combo well with that other thing that gives buffs to stealth units, but it also gives stealth to your opponent's units, and stealth isn't really all that useful of a mechanic in the first place. All it does is stops you from getting hit by ranged attacks, as well as being targeted by enemy spells while it's stealth, but it's removed after you attack. So if stealth made like the units completely invisible, where your opponent can't see where they were on the board, that would be awesome. Again, way too overpowered, but it would be awesome. Stealth just isn't that great of a mechanic. It doesn't really do a whole hell of a lot. You don't really have a lot of control over what happens with it. In order to keep it, you can't attack, and if you don't attack, generally you're not going to win. So I like to win. I know you like to win. Everybody likes to win, and because I like to win, I don't play stealthy things or stealth buffs like this one. Spirit Blast. I like this card a lot. I think it's very useful. It's good in Warlock burn decks. It's good in tournament. You saw that I almost picked this card. I've gotten multiples of these in a tournament pool before. I've gotten 4 Spirit Blasts, and that was probably the easiest tournament that I ever won in my life, because that's just like an unstoppable 20 damage to the castle. I only really need to get in there with a Dancing Swords, and then, I don't know, a 3-drop anything, and the game is over. Spirit Blast is very good. You just need to be careful when you use it. It's not useful in every deck. Again, be careful when you use it is the theme for the ninjas. In this deck, definitely shines in the Warlock burn decks, because that 5 damage to the castle is really nasty. And keep in mind, you can have 2 of these in the same deck. That's 10 damage to the castle. So, yeah, that's just, you only really need to get there with 20 more damage if you count 2 of these. Super brutal. Spirit Drake, I think this card's way too frail. The 3 attack and the 3 health. Compare that to a Lumberjack and Bear. You're getting that stealth ability, which isn't that great, as well as the +1 movement, which sometimes can be useful in exchange for 1 health from a neutral unit, and this is faction specific, and it's up in rarity. It's just not nearly as strong as something like Lumberjack and Bear. I don't like Spirit Drake. I don't play Spirit Drake. Every now and again, I get one, and I'm forced to play one with something like Terius, and sometimes Spirit Drake can be useful just because that 4 movement comes in handy, but I'd rather play Scout than Spirit Drake if I need something with that 4 movement, or ideally Dancing Swords. So, Spirit Drake, too frail. I don't like it. Tag Team, this was kind of my MVP of my draft. I really like Tag Team. I think Tag Team should be played way more often than it is today. I'm going to light a cigarette. And just kind of let you take in Tag Team and how great it is. Notice that that Panda Swordsman Brofist right there. They're doing it. At least I think that's a swordsman. I think it's fair to assume that that one's a panda. You never know. That could be the lumberjack, and that could be the bear. So you never know what, as far as the art is concerned, what it is on that card. But the effect remains the same. This thing is amazing. You saw, if you watched my tournament videos, you saw how useful tag team can be. People never saw it coming. And when I was able to get a value tag team in, it was just lights out for the opponent. This card can get you there. It'll win you games. It'll bring in those cards that attack more than one thing at a time and really generate a ton of value for you, as well as take a disabled unit and bring them back to life. So you keep in mind, you also do not have to bring back in the unit that you flashed out. So you can flash out something like a rat token, but bring in something nasty like the Ranger. You can flash out something like Flying Books, and then you can bring in something like Swordsman. So then you can play the Flying Books next turn and draw a card off of its Awaken effect again. There's a lot of ways to make tag team useful. All of them are great. Play tag team and ninjas, you won't be disappointed. Throne of the Emperor. This card's got mixed reviews from the community. I like it. A lot of people don't, because they don't want to have to discard a card. There's too many answers for buildings. It doesn't really do a whole heck of a lot to affect the board state when it comes into play. However, if you have the initiative, this card's nasty. You might as well, if you have no way to get rid of this throne and your opponent has equalized, you might as well just give up. The 2 attack makes the threat radius, or the 2 movement makes the threat radius of just about everything, almost the entire board, and the +1 attack can sometimes just be enough to get you there. Imagine 2/1 rat tokens with 5 movement, as opposed to 1/1 rat tokens with 3 unit movement. That's what this does, but to everything on the field. So you can get some really creative moves out of this thing. There's a card that I almost like better than this that we're going to cover in a little bit, that I kind of wished I got in my draft pool, but Throne of the Emperor is pretty good. Not the best legendary, not the best building in the game, but still very powerful. Will of the Dragon, you saw this be useful in my draft, but you also saw kind of the downside of it. You notice the big swing in tempo that happened when I played this card. However, when you play this card, you're not playing it because you want to play it. You're, generally speaking, you're playing it because you have to play it, or you want to get something out of the way in order to win the game. So Will of the Dragon definitely has its uses. I imagine it's significantly more useful in low-level play compared to high-level play, because giving your opponent 2 cards just seems like too much. You're sacrificing a card, you're destroying their unit, so 1 for 1 there. Then your opponent's drawing 2 cards. However, it can be useful. So I think this card deserves to see a little bit more play than it does, but it just doesn't see a whole heck of a lot of it right now. Ancient Jutsu Scroll. I used to like this card. If I remember right, this card gave a way bigger health buff back in the day. I want to say it gave like 5. Might have been 3. I don't remember. It gives a unit +2 attack, +2 health right away, and then 2 attack after each attack. So think ninja training, but better. Ancient Jutsu Scroll doesn't give the movement enhancement, but it makes your unit really strong. So it gives it 2 health, which increases their 5 ability, which is especially important for ninjas, and 2 attack right away, so you don't have to wait a turn in order to get an attack buff out of it. And then it just continues to get bigger and bigger and bigger. If if an opposing unit, especially a ranged unit, has Ancient Jutsu Scroll and you don't deal with it fast enough, you're probably going to lose, and you're going to lose badly. So be careful with this card. Again, it's a permanent buff, and it doesn't really do a whole heck of a lot, and there's a lot of situations where it's not going to be useful, so you just kind of need to be careful with Ancient Jutsu Scroll. When you play it, it can be a huge asset if played properly. Bato Jutsu, this is a card that has never been good. Give a melee unit +10 attack on your next turn. Essentially what this does, it puts a giant bullseye on whatever you just enchanted. The +10 attack is massive, and there's a lot of movement buffs that you can do cute stuff with Bato Jutsu, but either your opponents are going to body block or they're going to do something to kill your unit. If they have a spot removal or hard removal, they're going to use it. You can force them to use removal on a spell that they on a creature that they normally wouldn't, because they don't find it threatening. So Bato Jutsu can potentially be useful. If I remember right, this card used to draw a card as well. Now it doesn't. Sad, so they killed it even more than that's already dead. But because this thing puts such a huge bullseye on one of your units, it's not played, and probably for good reason, although I'm sure you could probably make this useful. I lost a game to this one time. And I've been playing this game for forever. I lost a game to Bono Juicy once. Eternity Strike. I just wanted you guys to soak in how strong Eternity Strike is. Eternity Strike, super strong. This is an auto-include in ninjas. It's super strong. Think Lightning Blade, but for ninjas. Yes, it only deals 4 damage compared to the 5 that Lightning Blade does. Yes, that's super important. However, ninjas have a lot of movement buffs. A lot of people don't play around Eternity Strike, so you can get huge combos, especially if you're not playing Vikings as your other factions. People will place their units suboptimally, keep them in clumps a lot more often, and you can just get massive value swings with Eternity Strike. Plus, eventually this will chain to the base and deal 4 damage to your opponent's castle as well, which is super huge. Eternity Strike should be played in just about every ninja deck that you play. Fantastic card. Face of the Dragon. This card is also really nasty. You should play this in your ninja decks as well, but not all of them. If you want to buff a unit to Oblivion and just kind of win, Face of the Dragon is going to do it for you, because it gives the stealth every turn, which is what more stealth cards should do. It actually makes stealth useful. So if you place this on something that has an evasive maneuvers on it, or something like that, then Face of the Dragon can be really, really nasty. It keeps your unit back in safety. You can bring it in to attack something, bring it back to safety, and it'll gain stealth again. So this card can be a powerhouse, but you need to combo this with other buffs and hope that it doesn't get bounced or somehow killed. Face of the Dragon can be nasty. So be careful when an opponent plays Face of the Dragon on something. Go for it. Sensei, this is the support unit for ninjas. This is probably one of the better support units in the game. It gives 1 movement. This used to give like 2 movement, then it gave 1 attack and 1 movement. Now this only gives 1 movement and no attack. I actually think it only gave +1 attack and +1 movement. Now it doesn't give the attack anymore, but it does have a fantastic stat line for a 3-drop. Compare this to something like Faithful Drake, and I think Sensei holds its own. Also, it does have that support ability, so it has a little bit more utility than Faithful Drake. I think if I had to pick one or the other, I'd rather play a Sensei than a Faithful Drake. But if you're playing a Drake deck or something like that, Faithful Drake will see the play. It gives a friendly unit +1 movement, so it just increases your threat radius significantly. So I really like Sensei. He's great on its own. He can defend just fine on his own, as well as increase your threat radius on your opponents. This card, they killed it. This card used to be great, now it sucks. It used to cost like 0, or it used to cost 1, now they increased the cost to 3. It draws a card, yay, but at 3, since stealth is so lame, and at 3 gold, it just costs too much for what it is. Compare this to Lightning Bolt. Lightning Bolt actually has an impact on the field, this doesn't. It doesn't even have a great impact on your units. Stealth, not great, don't play it. Dojo, let's touch on a card that I think should be dropped in rarity. It's a building. It gives all your units teleport. This card used to be way better. They got nerfed to oblivion and then kind of revived and then nerfed again and then revived, and now it's in this iteration. Of all the cards in the entire game, I don't think any one card has seen more changes than Dojo of the Master Jinzo. It's always been a legendary, but it's been through so many changes that they finally, I think, settled on this effect. And to be honest with you, I think it leaves some to be desired. I really wish that this was an epic instead of a legendary, because I think you need 2. This is an instant bullseye for just about everything. Stables, I think, is better than Dojo, but the bounce effect can be useful. But since you only have one of these, if it gets killed, you really have to build around Dojo in order to make it useful. However, if it gets killed, then you're kind of stuck with a Dojo deck without a Dojo, which is weak. You generally don't want to play this on turn 3. You want to save this for later in the game when you really need it and you can actually defend it properly. But if this sits in play too long, it's going to win games. You need to have a special deck in order to make Dojo work. It's not going to work all the time. Sometimes you're going to play it and it's just going to do nothing. I really wish Teleport also give you access to the top and the bottom rows, but they don't do that either. So it gives your opponents more space to stand, which is kind of lame as well. So Dojo, kind of underwhelming. I wish it got a drop in rarity so you could play more than one and build around it more effectively. But I think it's fine the way that it is as far as the abilities that it gains. You just need more than one in a deck. You have to build around it to make it useful. But if you get the opportunity to play it when it's useful, it's devastating. Training Ground. This card used to be like common, then it got raised to rare, then it got raised to legendary with no increase in benefit at all. Training Ground used to be a lot better when units didn't retaliate when you killed them. Now they do, so Training Ground is significantly less valuable. Training Ground needs to be built around as well. Ranged units are going to benefit most from Training Ground. Ranged units and knockback units, I guess, but especially ranged units because they're always going to retaliate. Ranged units are going to benefit the most from Training Ground, and if you get a Training Ground and play with a bunch of ranged units in your deck, think pirates. You're going to get a lot of value out of the Training Ground there. So, but a lot of times, since ninjas focus so much on bounce, if you bounce your units, they lose all the attack power that they gain from the Training Ground, which is kind of weak. But also think that your units are going to gain 2 attack every time they attack something. So if a unit wants to come up and attack you or finish one of your units off, it's just going to trade up with your opponents. So Training Ground can be useful. You just need to be careful when you play this. And this is also another card, kind of like Altar of the Damned, where you're not going to want more than one to play at the same time. You're going to wish you had a unit or something to play instead of this. But this isn't necessarily a bad card. I'm actually this card might be the new card that I build a deck for, because I kind of want to build a Training Ground deck and make it useful. So this card can be good, but you got to build around it. Tranquility, I feel like this should be played in just about every ninja deck, contrary to Training Ground, which is kind of unfortunate. But Tranquility bounces all units. All units, your opponent's units. I have a lot of times where I play Training Ground and my opponent has too many cards on their hand and they take some damage. So it'll keep the pressure off you. It'll help reset the board state. So if you're getting overrun, Tranquility will do it. If your opponent has a unit with a ton of buffs on it, Tranquility will get rid of them all. Tranquility is a great card. I think you should play this in almost every ninja deck that you have, and you won't be disappointed with Tranquility. The effect seems kind of lackluster, but played at the right time, this card can change the tide of the battle. Dark Spirit definitely, absolutely should be played in every ninja deck. That stat line's insane. This is the ultimate defender, now that they killed Fortress of the Red Tide, which used to be the ultimate defender. Now this is the ultimate defender. On turn 4, get a 6 attack unit. Nothing can survive a 6 attack that early in the game except for Dragon Knight. And even that, it'll trade with Dark Spirit. The Dragon Knight will survive, which is kind of unfortunate. But Dark Spirit is still super duper duper good. Play this in all your ninja decks, you won't be disappointed. I usually use this guy on defense. However, on offense, Dark Spirit can be very, very, very difficult to deal with. In draft, he's also fantastic too. Pick him just about all the time. You will not be disappointed with Dark Spirits. If you get a draft with like 7 of these guys in it, it's pretty much game over and you win. So Dark Spirit's great. You should play him all the time. Final Strike. This card's surprisingly good now. They changed the way Final Strike worked since the last time I used to play this card. Then it was totally worthless. Now it's decent again. If I have a unit and I play Final Strike on it, and then I move my unit up to your unit and I attack your unit, and your unit would kill my unit would kill your unit, my guy, even though he would die, still bounces back to my hand. That's huge value from a card like Final Strike. You're going to get a ton of value out of Final Strike. It's essentially a murder, but it does cost 4. I really wish it costed 3, but it costs 4. It's kind of unfortunate, but I mean, if you can get over the gold cost for Final Strike, you're going to be able to remove some big guys that, generally speaking, you wouldn't be able to deal with very well, or you're going to be able to get a lot of value on an attack on the base. So and it'll bring your guy back to your hand in order to bring him to safety. So I like to use this to kill other units, but Final Strike can be useful a lot. You need to be careful when you play this. Again, same as all the other ninja cards, very technical faction. So just be careful, but Final Strike, because of the way that if your unit would die, it still goes back to your hand anyway, works. That makes Final Strike way better than what it used to be. I take that back. Final Strike used to be insane, then it was totally worthless, and now it's playable again. Kuru. This is a card that got nerfed and increased to legendary from rare. A lot of people have this card. If you're playing against another ninja player, odds are they have it, because this card was a rare for a long time. So anybody who's played this game more than a few months is going to have Kuru for sure, because it used to only be a rare. It was nerfed. It used to have charge 3. Now it has teleport. Charge 3 is better than teleport because you can get into the top and the bottom rows, where with teleport you can't. So Kuru is great. Play him all the time. He is very frail. I really think Kuru needs a health buff. I really think that he should be at 6 health instead of 4 health, especially at legendary. But he's pretty neat. He does some cool stuff. You can get Kuru to combo in some to jump in. You can Eternity Strike off Kuru, where people wouldn't think that you'd be able to get a unit in there, and especially Eternity Strike something. So Kuru can be very useful. I think you should play Kuru all the time if you have him. And keep in mind, if your opponent's playing Ninja, they're probably playing Kuru. Spirit Meld, this card can be decent in draft. Other than that, I wouldn't really play it too much in Constructed. The 4/4 buff is pretty nice, but it does cost 4. It does give stealth, however, so if you buff your unit, you're not going to have to worry about him getting hit by a spell, at least that turn. At least not a direct spell, and at least not that turn. Which allows you to kind of take advantage of that 4/4 for at least one turn. So this card can be useful if you're setting up a super huge attack. So just keep that in mind. Alright, let's touch on one of my favorite ninja cards. This is Synchronized Strike. Now, compare this to Throne. It does the exact same thing as Throne. However, Throne costs 2, it's a building, and you have to discard a card. Synchronized Strike, no one will see this coming. You can get some wins with this. I really like to get this guy in draft. You can keep your units a lot farther back than your opponent would think. Play Synchronized Strike, walk up, and punch them in the face, and win. So Synchronized Strike will definitely get you there in tournament. I think this should see a little bit more constructed play because people don't see it coming. And compared to the Throne, you don't have to discard to make this work, and you can play more than one copy. So Synchronized Strike, there's a good chance that you're going to have it when you need it, since you can play more than one. It'll definitely get you there. Giving multiple units plus 2 movement in the same turn can really turn the tide of a battle. Think of this with harmonic balance or whatever. It gives your units 1 attack here, for 3 attack with the other card for a total of 4 attack, and then rush them all at your opponent's base at the same time and see if they survive, which I'm gonna guess probably not. Spirit Panda, this is the hero for ninjas. You might be thinking this only costs 4 and it's a 3/7, and the first time it was destroyed, you can turn it to your hand and get teleports, so you can get more. You can get an additional panda, and it has Great Cleave. This card's super strong, and it is. If pirates were a bit stronger as a faction, Spirit Panda would be worth going mono over. Spirit Panda's incredible. Think Ragnar, but well, better, because you can use this more than once. It's just kind of a bummer that ninjas aren't very great on their own, because if they were, Panda would be fantastic again, but they can't really make ninjas that great on their own anymore because Panda's so good. Ninjas are a really unique faction. They kind of, because they've been abused for just about as long as they've been in this game, they're really never, at least I don't think, never going to be that great anymore, which is really sad. So Panda's scene had a great life. Panda's had a fantastic life. He's just getting old now. Panda's old, and he's done some incredible things in his life. He's made some decks just unbeatable. He used to, instead of return once, he used to return infinity times. but he didn't have that teleport ability. You could just like march him 3 squares, march him 3 squares, march him 3 squares, get him killed, and runs again. Just continues to rush out and rush out and rush out and rush out and rush out with an unstoppable panda army. He was amazing. Now he's a little bit less useful, but that teleport is kind of, it's just fine. The one return makes him balanced. It's just the fact that the rest of the ninjas are really weak. It takes away from Panda. If you can find a mono ninja build that works, Spirit Panda is going to be incredible for you. But I just don't think the other cards are good enough to be able to let you go mono ninja and play Spirit Panda. The Wanderer, this card, the 2 attack is just horrible. It just doesn't kill anything. The 7 health means it can take a retaliation hit from a lot of stuff, but the 2 attack doesn't kill anything. You need to buff this guy to make him good. Generally speaking, you want to buff him with knockback, so play him with Vikings. If you're playing like Mono Ninja or like Ninja Pirate or pretty much anything that isn't Vikings, I don't play the Wanderer because he just leaves so much to be desired. You really, 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 really wish that he had more attack power than he does. It's just unfortunate for the Wanderer. The Wanderer used to be a 4/7 with the better multi-strike ability. That's I kind of explained it before. That was kind of like Pierce, and that was awesome. Now the Wanderer is pretty much dead again because people were abusing multi-strike and abusing ninjas again, so they had to kill the Wanderer too. So many of these cards used to be a lot better, and then they killed them. I mean, look at all the cards that they killed so far. Again, Wanderers are useful with Vikings. Other than that, I don't play him. He's just weak on his own. Alright, let's touch on Wotan here. You've probably read a lot about this guy if you've been on the forums. Wotan just doesn't really do a whole hell of a lot for you. His ability used to be different when looking at the beta. His ability was a lot different. Now his ability sucks. There's a lot of bad things I can say about Wotan. I expect a change for him in order to make him a lot better than he is. So I'm going to reserve my judgment for Wotan. Don't play him now, but I would expect a change for him to make him useful. Again, reserving my judgment on Wotan. Don't play him today, but don't get rid of him if you've got him. Ancestral Favor, you saw this thing be useful in my tournament. If you have too many of these at 5, he's not really going to be all that great, just because it costs so much to play. He has a 2 attack, 2 health, and 2 movement, but it is permanent. The movement buffs don't really need to be permanent, so it's really the only 2 attack and 2 health is what you're really worried about being permanent there. Even though you do get to keep the 2 movement, after the first time you get it, it's generally you're not going to need it. So the 2 movement aspect is nice at the beginning, plus it gives a buff right away, so it does 2 things for the cost of 1 card. You saw it be useful in Constructed. It's not that great, because generally speaking you're going to have some better stuff to play, especially on the 5-drop. Think Knight of the Flowers, Sentry Golem, or any of those other good cards, as opposed to Ancestral Favor. Again, this is not a card that you're probably going to want to be playing on turn 5. This is a card that you're going to save until later in the game, where you're really going to get maximum value out of it. But when you do, again, play it on one of those units that hits multiple targets at once, and you're going to be pleased. Demon Hunter, I really, really, really like this card in Tournament. I really, 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 really don't like this card in Constructed. This card's outclassed by the neutral 5-drops. Think Knight of the Flowers, think Sentry Golem. This thing is just outclassed by those. However, the 4 movement, as well as the fairly decent stat line, the above average stat line, in Tournament, this thing can be really nasty. It's going to trade. It's going to trade really nicely for you. I guess you can make this useful in Constructed. However, Tournament is where this card really shines. Shodan, another disappointment for ninjas. This card gets some cool abilities when used in conjunction with the other factions. When used with Vikings, this thing gains +2 movement and then knockback of I don't even know how many, but it's like 3, I think. I don't know. He gains knockback. When he's with Crusaders, he gains like +3 health, and then when he attacks, he gains +3 health again. So he makes him very, very, very difficult to kill. When used with Pirates, he gets the 2 movement, and then he gets +1 range, so it makes him a lot harder to retaliate against. When used with Warlocks, this guy gets Explosion 3, so similar to Pyromancer. Think School of Pyromancy, but instead of 2, it does 3. So he's a 5/7 with Explosion 3, so he'll do 8 damage to whatever target he's attacking and 3 damage to everything around it. And then with ninjas, if we're using mono ninjas and you play Shodan, he gets nothing. All he gets is the +2 movement. That is a huge bummer for mono ninjas. I bet you that if this guy had a mono ninja effect, he would be a lot more useful, but he doesn't, and it sucks. I really wish they could think of something cool to do with Shodan in mono ninja, but they just don't. He just doesn't. He's just not great. I mean, they couldn't think of anything to do good with Shodan. No, he doesn't get evasive maneuvers. He doesn't get a multi-strike. He gets nothing in mono ninja, and that sucks. So if you're playing mono ninja, don't play him. If you're playing ninja in anything else, a Shodan's going to be pretty good for you. You see him a lot in Ninja Warlock. You see him a lot in Ninja Viking. You don't see him too much in Ninja Crusader. You do see him fairly frequently in Ninja Pirate as well. So expect to see Shodan. Shodan's fairly good unless you're playing mono ninja, in which case don't play him at all. Samurai, this is the last card. Again, ninjas don't really have a whole heck of a lot, not as much as the other guys, but then again, they were an expansion faction. I'm not really going to go into that. But Samurai, pretty good. This is your heavy hitter. This is one of the reasons why I like taking ninjas in tournament mode. Samurai is really going to get you there. It's going to win you some games. The stat line's really good. In constructed, I just think he leaves a lot to be desired at the 7 spot. But he's not a bad pick for you at the 7th spot. He's gonna do his job, and he's gonna do it well. So there's nothing wrong with playing Samurai in constructed today. Even in high level play, Samurai is gonna get the job done. I call this thing Kunoichi all the time because it used to be called Kunoichi. They changed the name. For some reason, I always forget that this thing is Samurai. It used to be Kunoichi. Because I used to play this card all the time back in the day. I don't play it so much anymore, but it's not because it's bad. It's just because I have other stuff that I want to play instead. But I really think that this card is great, and it should be played more in constructed than it is today. Definitely pick this thing in tournament. You won't be disappointed with the way that it performs for you. So there's my ninja breakdown. Again, they killed a lot of the cards. Ninjas is just not as strong as the other factions standalone. The best standalone factions are really all the other ones. Not because Panda isn't worth it. Panda is definitely worth going mono ninja because you can do so many great things with the Spirit Panda. The Spirit Panda is a house. However, it's because all of the other cards are not good enough on their own. All these cards are support cards. Support. All these cards are good support cards, but none of these cards are really great on their own. And that's kind of where Mono Ninjas is lacking, as well as they don't really have any draw power. So you're really kind of stuck with what the deck is going to give you. You'll be able to keep your units alive, but if you don't have any good units, why would you bounce them if they're not good? If they're not going to give you any value here, they just don't really have support for themselves. So you need other factions to support ninjas if you want to use ninjas as your main faction, and you can use ninjas to support other factions, but ninjas can't support themselves very well, which is kind of weird. But that's just the way that it works. So there's my ninja breakdown. I hope you guys liked it. I think again, as far as the informative videos go, I'm gonna go into deck building. But on the last video that I posted, I kind of gave a little bit of instruction there. So thanks for watching this one, and I look forward to seeing you the next one. Remember, like, comment, subscribe. Let everybody know what's going on out there. I still have a ton of stuff lined up. I've got another tournament that I have to draft. I'm going to keep that as an ongoing series. So I hope you guys liked it, and I'll see you in the next one. Take care. Bye-bye. Okay. Alright, I'm ready to stop recording now.